All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast hosted by Exercises Medicine at UC San Diego, where we are committed to raising awareness about exercise for health and well-being, alongside advancing professional development related to the diverse careers in sports medicine.
And just a little disclaimer before we start, we are not medical or fitness professionals, and the info we discuss today is just for entertainment purposes, and as such, is not to be misconstrued as medical advice. Catherine and I are professional development coordinators at Exercises Medicine, and we will be hosting today's informational interview.
And we are so happy to have Alexandra and Sam, the founders of Intego Sports, joining EIM today. Thank you two for chatting with us. Could you please introduce yourselves and maybe share a little bit about your sports background before we dive into the questions for you?
Yeah, so my name is Alexandra Jolson. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Intego Sports alongside Sam. We are building a soccer innovative footwear company, and I'm a lifelong soccer player and athlete. I've played soccer my entire life, and I also did some martial arts throughout high school and middle school, and just being an athlete has been super important in my entire life.
Yeah, and hi, I'm Sam Andrews. I'm the COO of Intego Sports and a co-founder along with Ali. And I'm actually not a soccer player, which I know is a crime to say in my industry. But that being said, I've spent my whole life in martial arts. I've done actually quite a bit of MMA growing up. And so that athletic and competitive piece of my life has been a serious portion of my growing up.
So you guys have both had crucial or relevant experience for sure before getting into
Absolutely.
this business stuff. So I guess the first question I'd like to ask, and I'm sure it's like, the typical question, you guys have heard it a million times. What ultimately inspired the start of this company? Was it someone's idea? Was it a class perhaps that you took at Cal Poly?
Yeah, well, I'm from San Diego, so you see, SD is definitely near me. But in high school, I kind of came up with an idea as a soccer player. I saw a problem in the market. I saw my teammates and the athletes around me facing this problem. And I actually took an entrepreneurship class at my high school and came up with an idea and took it to Junior Achievement San Diego, which is a local entrepreneurship competition. And my team actually placed third there. So I took the idea back to Cal Poly with me and formed a team. And it's been almost 2 years now, and here we are. So it was definitely awesome to see an old high school idea and how it pivoted and came to where it is at today.
Nice. And what about you, Sam? What were you like involved in like anything that made you want to go into integral sports as well?
Oh gosh, I actually going forward in my life from high school did not expect to be an entrepreneur. When I started college at Cal Poly, I was a physics major. I wanted to go into laboratory research. I was hoping to spend the rest of my life in an observatory. But Ali was my best friend from the start of college. We studied together, and I respected Ali because she worked her ass off. And so she asked me to be a part of her team for Startup Marathon right after she'd done the elevator pitch competition. And Startup Marathon was a 2-day event where you have, I think it's actually 52 hours to build a pitch deck for a startup company. And we ended up winning that. And I decided to stay on. So after that, I did realize that, I never planned on being an entrepreneur, but at the same time, I had a notebook that I kept in my back pocket just for ideas for companies or movements or just some things that I could change. So I think even if I didn't recognize that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, if I'm having those ideas and I wanted to change things somehow, that is entrepreneurship. So I'm really happy that Ali invited me to start at Marathon because I think it really changed the direction of my life.
Yeah, from physics to becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
That's like a huge reroute.
I'm so sorry.
No, keep going.
What have you two found, I guess, is the most fulfilling or exciting about being entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think together, Sam and I both agree that we don't really want to go into, the 9-to-5 lifestyle, and being your own bosses is just the coolest thing ever. And it's just a kind of a great opportunity to kind of take the path you want to take, and we can kind of make our own internal decisions and kind of take the company where we see fit. We don't have to, deal with the big corporate bosses down on us telling us, hey, you have to work, take this day off and you have to work this exact hours. So being able to be our own bosses and kind of determine our own future is something that is very valuable to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think in combination with that, the piece of entrepreneurship that is making a change, that is, seeing something in the market, seeing something in the world that can be improved and actually going out and doing it is incredibly validating for me and incredibly satisfying just to know that I'm working on changing something.
Yeah. And so tell us about this product that, is going to be changing lives. You mentioned it was like a special cleat.
Yeah, so I guess in soccer, I found that a lot of athletes complain about how long their cleats last and how expensive they are and how they always have to break in these new cleats and duct tape them and deal with blisters and just this extensive amount of problems. So we kind of came in and said, hey, let's create a cleat that lasts longer, that's more durable and solves these problems for athletes. And basically, we're trying to create a cleat that's 3 times more durable than the average cleat on the market. So our cleats will last longer, they'll be better, they'll fit the needs of the consumer. And then there's also a lot of different sustainability aspects to it. If you're interested, Sam is our head of sustainability and can go into that more if you're interested in those benefits.
Definitely. Sam, I'd love to hear you share.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you asked, Alec. So what the core innovation in our cleat is a manufacturing process. So when in footwear, in typical manufacturing, someone is attaching a sole onto the upper of a shoe, they use a process called cementing, or at least that's the most common method. And all that cementing is it's basically gluing the top to the bottom. It's a chemical glue, a chemical adhesive that you heat up, you paint on either side of the bottom of the upper or the top of the sole, and you stick them together. And the issue with that from an environmental perspective is, when you hear, oh, glue, it's not that bad for the environment, but the actual chemical cements used in footwear are incredibly toxic to the point that if they leach into the water supply or the soil stream, it can completely cripple ecosystems for many, many years. And it's actually been linked directly to permanent brain damage in workers in factories when they're improperly exposed. And that's not entirely uncommon. Safety conditions in a lot of manufacturing shops in footwear are not held to a high standard. So with that being said, there's a recorded case of this illness and these permanent brain damage symptoms going back into the early 1900s when they called it the madness of the shoemake. So since then, there have been improvements in the adhesive, but in our specific manufacturing process, we completely eliminate it. So we're not exposing anyone to that adhesive. We're not risking that adhesive entering the environment because we just don't use it. And then in combination with that, because our shoes last longer, we're using less materials over time. Mm-hmm. And we're also potentially looking into some sustainable materials going forward.
Wow, those are big initiatives. I'm really glad you took the time to educate yourself on it before creating that problem.
It wasn't something that we knew immediately. It wasn't something we knew going in. So it's something we had to figure out and address.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's common knowledge, at least for me or Daniel. Definitely wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah. Wait, so do the majority of cleats use that adhesive then?
Yeah, by far the vast majority. There are some that don't. So the alternative of that in the industry is called injection molding. And in injection molding, you take a series of plastic beads, you put them in a pressurized machine, you put your upper in another part of the machine, you melt the plastic and you bond them together. And that's been described to us as the Porsche of footwear manufacturing. So it's what we based our manufacturing process off of. Our process is essentially an improved injection molding method. And that is used in some cleats like the Adidas Copa Mundial. Some of the best-selling cleats of all time do use injection molding, but the common cleat uses cementing.
Oh.
And so another question I have about your cleats is maybe related to a personal issue of mine. I was actually just shoe shopping, not for cleats personally. I don't play soccer, but I do like to run. And so I was just, looking around Nike outlets yesterday, and I was noting the fact that there weren't a lot of, styles that catered to me. styles as in, like pure aesthetics, colors and all of that. And so how have you guys been addressing that? Because I feel like you guys are younger, you're more into like aesthetics, or totally correct me if I'm wrong. That was just an assumption, but I wanted to know how you guys are approaching that.
Yeah, I think one thing we really pride ourselves on as a company is talking to our consumers and kind of listening to what they're looking for. So, being an athlete, I can talk to my friends and my old teammates and kind of see what they're looking for in their cleat and what aesthetics they really look for when they're, in that outlet trying to find a shoe. So, I think just talking to our consumers and just being active in the industry is something we really try to do and do as much customer development as possible. Hearing from your consumers what will create a successful company. You could create the best product on the market, but if you go into that outlet and there's not a shoe that you like or something that doesn't look like a shoe that you'd put on your foot, then there's no point of creating that product. So we really have been putting a lot of emphasis and focus on talking to the consumers.
That's great. I know as a consumer, I'd love to be heard, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I can also speak to a little bit of a challenge there because, we do have the advantage of we are very close with the market. We are college students. We are, past athletes and current athletes. But the challenge that we face with that is, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, the big companies can produce new cleats and new SKUs really, really quickly. We're still working on developing our first shoe. And with that, it's going to be a challenge to us to scale, to create multiple, different color schemes, different designs. Our hope is that by, really taking the time to understand what people want, we can make sure that the ones we produce are the right designs. But, we do have to consider that going forward. We have to be very picky.
Yeah, definitely. And just branching off on the cleats, I was just wondering, do these cleats lessen any chances of attaining an injury? And if yes, how?
Yeah, Sam, want to go to that?
Absolutely. So first of all, when we talk about our cleats breaking down, the first place that they do that is right at the edge of the sole and the upper. We probably should have explained that a little earlier, but that process is called delamination. And it's mainly because when most cleats put together their sole and their upper, where they join together, it's a relatively flat plane. So when you have those flat planes and there's straps on either side, it starts to peel apart. And there's not much data on how much injury it causes, but it does put people at risk, first of all, of tripping and slipping because, their soles are delaminating from their shoes. Traction becomes mixed and unreliable. And then following that, it can also lead to critical failure where the sole separates from the upper. And while that's less common, it's really not unheard of, and it has been seen on professional television. I mean, the most common discussion we have about this is Zion Williamson, who was a basketball player whose foot just went completely through his shoe in the middle of a basketball game on live television in the NBA. And I believe he sprained his ankle. It could be a different injury, but my understanding was that he was out for a while and that really hurt his team. So it's not necessarily a direct cause of injury every time that the shoe is delaminating, but it can lead to injury, and it's an issue of, hey, can I rely on my cleat not to fail me?
Yeah, and our goal is to create a cleat that won't fail you. So
I think you're definitely right about like the cleat delaminating. I used to be like a soccer player like way back in the day, and I remember like my cleats like gradually coming off, and I would like sometimes like trip over it or whatever during at the soccer field. So yeah, you're definitely right on that part. Yeah.
I guess another aspect of that is the solutions that athletes resort to are like duct tape and shoe glue and trying to figure out the problem and make the cleat last longer. And those just aren't safe alternatives. So, making the shoe not fit the way it should by using duct tape is just not the safest for the athlete.
Yeah, definitely using duct tape on the shoe.
People shouldn't have to duct tape their shoe together. They just really shouldn't.
I've seen the duct tape in person. Oh man.
Cleats are expensive. People love their cleats. They want to make them last longer. And that's kind of where we're trying to target. So, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Continue. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to take a question, I guess, back to the start of your own company again, because I'm just so interested in that and so inspired by that. what skills I think have you guys found to be super crucial in creating the company and designing the cleat and all that?
Yeah, so I've actually done a lot of thinking about this. And I think the first and most important skill is just noticing problems, noticing issues. And, that's a common answer I think you'd hear probably when you're talking about starting a company, because, hey, what is a company? It's something trying to solve a problem for consumers. But then I think it's also really important going forward, because if you can't notice the flaws in your own business model, if you can't notice the flaws in your engineering, if you can't see where you're going wrong and where you need to fix it, then you're not going to succeed as a company. And then I think in order to validate those problems, you need to be really good at customer development. You need to be really good at listening to your consumer. And that doesn't just mean, what answers are they directly giving you, but it also means, look for holes in the market, listen to the attitudes of players you're interviewing or people you're talking to who are telling you about an issue. Just really listening to what's being communicated, not just what's being said. And then I think the final piece that I've found really important is, as much as I don't like to admit that I have limits, recognizing your limits, because if you don't have the necessary skill to do something right, it's absolutely a good time to learn. But at the same time, if you need to get something done and it has to be outsourced, and that's the right move, then the goal is to better the world and to move your company forward, not to be egotistical.
Alexandra, do you have any skills you'd like to share about, or did Sam touch on them all?
Yeah, I think just kind of the final, traditional entrepreneurs just being, hardworking and really wanting to put in the work. I mean, especially being a college student and trying to be an entrepreneur, you have to be gritty, you have to persevere, you kind of have to deal with staying up all night on regular occasions. So I think being passionate about what you're doing and being willing to put in the work is an imperative skill to being an entrepreneur.
And speaking of being a college student, how were you guys able to balance a company and being a full-time college student? Like I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah, I guess to touch on that a little bit, we also have a head of engineering named Jack, who's not here today, but we all became really good friends after startup career fair or startup marathon that Sam was talking about earlier. And we kind of made our, friend social time working on the company. So I think if you're going to start a company, you need to start a company that you're passionate about and that you can kind of take your free time and put it into the company. So speaking for myself, and I think I'm speaking for Sam as well, we do not have a lot of free time. We're willing to put that time into our company and being dedicated to grow it. So balance-wise, I wouldn't say there's not much balance there with the work-life balance, but I mean, being a college kid, I don't think you really should.
No, I absolutely agree. I think at the end of the day, we all have a certain amount of time. I'm not going to make the claim that everyone has the same 24 hours. I think people have different 24 hours, but what you do with that time is your choice. And I think by making work fun, by making it your free time, you can really push things forward.
And to bring it back to, I guess, exercise and well-being, because I know that is like a value of your company. How have you taken, I guess, the knowledge that you've learned, I guess, from making the shoe or from creating the company? How have you taken this knowledge and how has it influenced perhaps the way you exercise or the way you physically move through life?
Yeah. I mean, I can touch on this a little bit, but I guess not even the company, but just being a soccer player, I understand now the value of exercise and I can see how different it is now in my life. I don't play soccer 7 days a week. It really completely changes your lifestyle when you're not constantly dedicating your life to a sport. So being able to exercise is something super important. And I think by trying to start a company, Sam and I've definitely lacked on that. And we can really tell in our lives how it's changed our lives because we used to both exercise almost every single day of the week. And now we're so busy, it's really hard for us to make time for that. And that's still something we're really working on. But I think we both truly understand the importance of it. And we're still trying to get ourselves to, take action and move forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, back to the company, because I'm just so interested in it. Was there a concern when starting the company? Because I know I hear a lot of like pros and positives coming out of this, but I also know there's like a more, I guess, realistic perspective of starting your own company and all the struggles that it can, perhaps, or the struggles that can arise with that.
Mhm. I guess as a freshman, we had no idea what the heck customer development was. We're like, oh, we have a great idea. It'll be fine. We can just move forward with it. The customers will want it. And that has caused a lot of concern and a lot of problem because we were creating a really cool product day one, but it wasn't a product the consumers wanted. So we've actually pivoted a lot throughout the last 2 years. And we've had a lot of concerns with our designs and pivoted from a business standpoint and from an engineering standpoint, because you can have a really cool idea, but it has to be made. So if it's not really manufacturable or, something that can be engineered, then you have to make a change. So we've definitely had a lot of concerns, issues, pivots, but I know we've emphasized it, but it really comes down to customer development. So I think that's definitely helped pivot our product in a way better direction.
And how have you managed to stay inspired for over 2 years? Because I know 2 years may not be a large time span in developing a product, but I guess to me 2 years does seem like a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to speak to that. I think first of all, and most importantly, it is each other. Everyone who's a major part of this company gets incredibly excited whenever we either learn something new or figure something out, and we all build off of that from each other. So as soon as somebody gets super excited about something, we look into it, we get more excited about it, and it just keeps pushing us forward. And then I think the second piece of that is we do have some really incredible advisors and mentors. And, we have hit for some pretty low lows and some pretty high highs. So when we hit those low points, when we hit really hard points, a lot of our mentors have helped us out. One of our mentors named Jim Finwick has really, really helped us push through some of the moments in our company where we've needed to pivot. So it's each other, but it's also the help when we've needed it.
And I think one other quick piece to touch on is just getting validation as you go feels really, really good. So like we won $1,000 in the elevator pitch competition and $750 in the startup marathon weekend. And we're about to participate in a competition for $15,000 and another one for $10,000. So just kind of having validation as you go and being able to, celebrate those wins with your team is something that keeps pushing us forward.
And so how do you keep finding these, these small competitions to, keep progressing your idea? Are they provided by the college, or do you have to actively go seek them out?
Yeah, so Cal Poly has the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and it provides a ton of resources for us. So actually, one thing is Sam, Jack, and I are all living in the Lofts right now, which is a Cal Poly entrepreneurship apartment complex. And it's directly across from a really big co-working space that's super fun and has a lot of advisors and resources. But in general, Cal Poly has these big competitions, and it really does help support us. I mean, one thing we're really emphasizing is bootstrapping as a company and keeping as much capital and ownership of our company as we can, because once we grow, we know we're going to need to take on investment. So we're trying to save our equity now by using those competitions as a platform to grow our company. They're equity free, so it's definitely very helpful.
And touching back on Intego Sports, I was just wondering, how will you guys continue to grow Intego Sports? And do you guys have like a vision for your company? Do you want to create more products, or what? Yeah,
I can definitely go into our next steps, and Sam, if you want to go into vision.
Yeah, I'll talk about scaling.
But I think currently we have a lot of big plans for this year. This year is going to be super pivotal for us. So over the next few months, we want to get a shoe on an athlete's feet. We want to get feedback. We want to do testing, and we want to really get a shoe into the market. Getting our first shoe made is definitely the first step to launching our company. We're almost ready to file our utility patent and actually take on some real capital investment. So those are kind of our big steps in the next few months. But Sam can definitely go through some more vision and future scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that scaling piece, like I said before, at the core of our company, our technology is a manufacturing process. And something that we realized about this manufacturing process is it's not just usable on cleats. So our manufacturing process is applicable to any two-piece shoe. And what we mean by that, and actually I should clarify, any two-piece shoe with a plastic or rubber sole. That means sneakers, running shoes, hiking boots, walking shoes, casual shoes, skate shoes. We can really go on and on. As long as we're not getting into different shoes like ice skates, we'll never get into the ice skate industry probably. I don't see us going into flippers anytime soon. We do have a lot of options for scaling as a technology, but we definitely want to master cleats first as our market entry position. And then we'll likely consider skate shoes or running shoes, somewhere to make us grow as a company through our technology. And we want to keep developing our brand. We want to show that, hey, we have this innovation, but as a company, we are also differentiated. And our main company values on that we want to share are, first of all, transparency. I think a lot of big companies like Nike and Adidas, have some processes in their company that they may not want to talk about. We want to talk about ours. We also want to be completely clear and honest in all of our actions. And with that, we want to include strong guarantees in our company to show, if we are telling you we're making a longer lasting cleat, we're going to stick to it. We're going to keep that promise. If we don't last longer, then, send us back your cleat. So I think we want to focus on developing a brand based on honesty, transparency, listening to the consumer and solving real problems. And then going forward, we can make more shoes.
We don't want to just be a product. We want to be a reliable company.
As a consumer myself, that is sounding like perfect. Like,
I would like to hear.
I guess I wanted to ask a little more about, your visions. Do you see yourself, I guess the question I have whenever you grow something is that I always think, you're talking with more advisors, you're talking with more people. So do you expect that as a company, as a growing company, you guys are going to be branching out and like networking more with people? Or do you think it's more based on, looking at the products, looking at the facts and the details? Do you think like the people and the networking is very important to that? Or is it more like, looking at your own shoe and your own brand?
I think it's a little bit of both, but networking is something that I guess Sam and I have seen to be extremely valuable over the last few months. The people is something that's going to help grow your company to the extreme. So who knew we knew so many footwear people, but somehow we realized how many footwear connections we have in our network, and those have become some of our closest advisors. So networking is something we found to be super important for our success. We've found, the best mold makers in the world and footwear developers and advisors just from our own networks. So being able to network properly and really value that is something that we really value as a company.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement.
Oh, and just like touching on the networking aspect, were there like I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but were there any other opportunities that you were able to take advantage of in college? And how have you specifically been able to network with others? Was it through like LinkedIn or like any other means?
I guess one other resource I didn't touch on that we have on campus is kind of a 3D printing space. So in our early days, we used that to rapid prototype. Sam, Jack, and I would walk down to it's called the Innovation Sandbox, like 4 a.m. No one was using the 3D printer, so we could fill all of them and print as much stuff as we wanted to test. So that was a really important resource for us. We didn't have to pay for any prototyping. And then in regard to networking, I think it's just, talking to as many people, checking in. LinkedIn's been a super awesome platform. Sam just got 500 connections, so we're really proud of him. But yeah, LinkedIn's an awesome resource, but also just talking to people. So like we have entrepreneurship clubs on campus and marketing clubs, and showing up and, interacting with guest speakers and just giving them a business card has created a lot of valuable relationships for us. So I think it's just, treating everyone as if they can be an opportunity later and just making as many connections as possible.
Mm-hmm. And then, Ali, I don't think we spoke about the hatchery. I know we said stuff about the CIE, but did we mention the hatchery?
Yeah, the hatchery is just kind of a really cool space we have at Cal Poly. It's a study workspace for entrepreneurs. So you basically work on your company or even do your homework, but you're surrounded by other like-minded individuals and entrepreneurs who are also trying to grow a company. And then there's also, an advisor office in the hatchery, and you can kind of go bang on their door and ask for help when you need it. And maybe they're a little annoyed at you, but they definitely help you out and share immediate advice, which is super awesome to be able to just talk to someone who has so much experience and they're kind of just right there in your hands for help.
It's great that the resources and the help are just right there for you. Cal Poly seems like a great school for that.
Yeah. The resources that Cal Poly has provided to us, or at least made accessible, have been incredibly not only beneficial, but I'd say important in growing our company. Mm-hmm. So, it's been an incredible opportunity for us, and we're very thankful for the privilege that we have to be able to use those resources.
Yeah, one of our other goals that I guess I didn't touch on when you asked about, what we're trying to work on over the next year. So is Cal Poly has an accelerator program that we're really, really striving to get into this year. It's $10,000 and you work out of a co-working space with like 8 other teams. And you basically work over the summer for 13 weeks straight on your company. And it's kind of where you decide like, hey, is this company going to make it? It's a launch pad. It helps you prepare for launch, but it also gives you like a completely immersive experience with advisors and entrepreneurs and just, your consumers that you can connect with. So we're hoping we can get into that this summer, get some capital, and then really know like, hey, are we going to make it?
Mm-hmm. And if anyone from the accelerator judging board is listening, $10,000, we could make a shoe. We could get our molds made.
Could get it into the market where you're looking for it, Mm-hmm. And so I guess before we close out this episode, because I know we've taken enough of your time, I wanted to ask you guys one last question. What might you tell other students who are considering entrepreneurship or perhaps taking or looking to take maybe their sports background and create something out of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit, and then I think Ali can speak to the starting a company piece better. But from the perspective of someone who, didn't expect to become an entrepreneur, didn't expect to become involved in this, I think that it really is a question of one, mindset, and thinking of yourself as someone who can start a company, thinking of yourself as someone who can grow a company, of who can, change something and hopefully get rich doing it. But two, it's the Nike saying, the Nike motto, it's just do it. It's, I had that journal in my back pocket with ideas for years, and I never even expected to try to do something with it. But if you don't try to do something with it, then, you're never going to solve that problem. You're never going to take it anywhere you don't have that opportunity. So it's not only see yourself as someone who can be an entrepreneur and recognize that as an opportunity, but take it. Take the actual action to start something. If you don't know how to do it, ask someone.
And I think one piece of advice that I've heard throughout, college is the best time to start a company and be an entrepreneur. You will always have your education to fall back on. So don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid to start a company. If you fail, you'll have a university degree to fall back on, but you should be willing to put in the risk, willing to put in the time. And if you're a college student, you're surrounded by not only students who want to help you, but alumni from your university who are actively seeking to help, your students and the students that go to that school. So I think if you are in college and looking to start a company, you should, like Sam said, just do it and dive into it because you're kind of at the prime time in your life to do it.
True. I always thought like, oh, college is the best time to dye your hair. But like what you guys are saying, it's also the best time to start a company.
Yes, I am.
And so hopefully our viewers took note of that. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And thank you guys so much for coming on. We really want to say thank you for spending a Sunday morning with EIM and educating us on your professional path, as well as Intego Sports and telling us about your product. We definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate the platform. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. And for more updates, you can find Exercise as Medicine at UCSD on Facebook or Instagram. and view our past podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. So thank you, EIM, for coming out. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Alexandra and Sam.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday.